In this video, I kind of want to cover the basics of how you can speed up your unwrapping. So, assuming you've already got a model, such as the one I have here, for example, and you want to unwrap it, it's already been triangulated and all that kind of stuff. This is kind of the, I guess you could say, the worst setup, or not the worst setup, obviously, but a bad setup that you can have going into it and still make your life fairly easy to where you can achieve a result similar to this. Now, I'm not done with this one yet. I still have some areas like that one I'm not concerned about because it's not visible. But sections such as here have some bad stretching, so I got to go through and do those, obviously. But I'll kind of just show you some small tricks that might help you along in this process, so that way you're not doing the usual, smart UV project and calling it a day and ending up with a million different parts because there's this ton of seams everywhere. Because if I go ahead and bring all the seams over, you can see there's just seams everywhere where it's really not needed. All right, so let me go ahead and undo all that. So I have another model, well, same model here that just has not been touched. So as you can see, everything is overlapping. We have some problems everywhere, and there's just no seams anywhere. But everything is set up for the most part. And basically what we want to do is, you can see we already have a lot of the edges are marked as sharp, which is a very good thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Edge Select, select one of these sharp edges, go to Select, select Similar, and Sharpness. Now that'll select all of the sharp edges, as you can see here, or all the edges that are marked sharp. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click, mark them as seam, and unwrap. And this will be kind of that base point to get you started. Because as you can see, it took a good amount of the stuff, laid it out decently well. And on the plus side, everywhere that it did, but that was marked sharp, is now also a seam. So obviously you would want to go through and make sure that you don't have any weird areas that you didn't want, but I'm not going to go through and do that yet. So starting up with fixing areas. So this here, as you can see, that's pretty janky. And it's just this long strip. And what we can do is we can select it in the island, go over to the mesh, and we can see that it is the cable here, the cable tie, whatever you want to call this. Now what we want to do is, if we look at the actual tie itself, there is no seam on it. So it's just taking it and it's just trying to lay it out flat the best it can, and it's really not doing that great of a job. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and unwrap this part to fix that up and then move on to the next. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to select the inside, because this is, just think of it like a very long, winding, what do you call it? Cylinder. So what do you do with the cylinder? Well, you have the caps, which is right here. That's unwrapped. That's unwrapped, or sorry, that's marked as a seam, and that's marked as a seam. Now we got to rip a line all the way from the middle to each of these caps. Now I'm going to do that in the way that's going to be the least visible, because I don't really care to have one around the whole outside, even though it's so small I doubt anyone would ever notice. But what I'm going to do is, actually, let me turn on Streamcast keys real quick. I had to go through and actually find it and install it again. But anyways, all right, that's set up. So what we're going to do is we want to run the seam on the underneath and have it trail the entire part of this tie here. So what I'm going to do is probably just start in the easiest part and then work my way through. So I want to do this section right here. I want to start here and then work my way down on either side till I get to the end caps. So to begin, let's just go somewhere underneath, and I'm just going to click and control click, and I want to make sure these are going fairly straight, and then control click, and that should run a line all the way through to there. So now I want to go straight through to the other side, right in the middle. So I'm going to control click there, and it should trace it right through in a smooth straight line like that. All right, let's keep this going. Might be easier to go to the other side and just see if it'll follow it well. Alrighty. Looks like it's tracing it pretty decently. Now we just want to keep going. I'm starting to get a little bit to the outside here. So my guess is I skipped, but I'm not too concerned about it. No one's going to be in this area to even see. So therefore it is really not important to me. Okay, so we're here. Now we got to get to the end. So we can control click and we can see it made a mistake there. So that is one that we ourselves can fix. So I'm going to select that straight edge and control click to that guy. And that'll select it all the way through. I'm going to go ahead and mark it as a seam while I'm here. And now we want to continue on. So let's go back down to the other end, and I'm getting my controls all messed up here. We want to select that very last edge. All right, so we select this guy, and we want to run it again straight down. So I'm going to select here. Actually go into wireframe, get a decent view of it. And just kind of select straight down, like so, the best we can. And now we are at the other end. We can select a long line and just kind of keep it going, so we know that it's going to end up all the way down to there. Now, with a little bit of hope, I'm hoping I can click on here, control click, and have it follow it properly. So if I look down, I'm not seeing any harsh curves or any sharp changes in it, so I know that it is straight. So I'm going to select here, and just like last time, I'll go into this side view so I can see a little bit easier. We want to follow that line straight up, control click to that very end. So that way we have it matching all the way from end to end, and we can mark that as a seam. So if I go ahead and press L to select that, and I unwrap it, let's see, where did you go? As you can see here, we turned that ugly mesh, or that ugly, whatever the heck you would call this line here, with two balls in the end, sounded kind of gross, into this nicely unwrapped section here, this kind of snake with two end caps. And that's kind of the goal we're really after for the entire mesh. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and, not sure what I clicked, select everything and unwrap, and move on to the next. So let's go to the other areas where we have some stretching. So here, obviously, and let's just see if these are areas that we'll be able to see, which they are, and what in the world happened to you? All right, so apparently I did something in the process that screwed up my faces. So I'm going to unwrap again. All right, let's select these back so we know that the area is in here. So here, let's actually, these are the lenses, so let's select these and hide them so we can see all the way through. And select this whole little section here. Okay. So what this is trying to do is it's trying to take this kind of inside box and lay it flat. However, the problem is it does not have a way that it can do that. Like, you can't just take something that's, think of it like a hollow cylinder. You can't just take that and lay it flat without running a cut through the middle. This is the exact same thing. So what we want to do is we want to run a seam right through one of these edges in the corner and put it in a place where it's less likely to be noticed. So in this case, my assumption is because you're going to be holding the firearm right-handed in the game, you're most likely going to be seeing the bottom here, especially with how light's going to be hitting it. Due to the angle most of the time, light's going to be shining downward. So you're more likely to have more visibility here. So I want to put this up here somewhere instead. I figured that would probably be a much better place to try and hide it. So I just want to find a fairly straight line, which looks like this guy here. I'm going to alt-click, just make sure that, well, yeah, that one goes all the way through anyways, I think. Because this is a separate piece, right? No. All right, so I'm going to alt-click. It's already connected to that one, which has a seam in it. So now I want to connect it to this edge here, which has a seam, and mark it. So now, same thing. I'm going to unwrap. And let's see, where would this be now? So that is now this section right here, smoothly unwrapped. So it went from, it is now this, and it was this. So as you can see, that's an improvement there, and gotta undo again. There we go. So, great improvement. All right, so we have another one. I think this is probably the other side. Nope, that is actually on the inside. So this is an area where we're not going to see anything. So ultimately, I could leave it like this. It does not matter. I'm just going to go ahead and do it again. So I'm going to select the edge. However, I would like to do one that links directly straight up with it, which this actually does. So I can just go from here, select here, and it'll link right up. And then same thing, we got to do that right here. So we just have a line that's going to allow us to unfold it just how we need. So let's select there, and here's our new piece. So it has now been laid out flat. Okay, so let's see, what's this guy here? If you can't, well, there it is, but let's say you can't find it. I just select it in the UV editor, and I press G and move it around. It tells me it's over in this kind of section. So let's see, does the other side have it? No, the other side's nice and cut off, so this is all one piece. Okay. So I'm going to do it in a place that's most likely going to be less noticeable, because you're probably going to have it at this angle most of the time, roughly. Then when you aim in, it should still be relatively covered up. So I'm going to run a seam. Actually, better yet, let's run a seam down. No, that wouldn't make any sense at all. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm just being kind of an idiot. Let's see, where would this work best? It's one of those things where you just kind of got to think about it a little bit. And that is for this whole section, isn't it? Okay, so that's for that entire ring. That should lay pretty flat on its own. So it's just stretching in areas like that. So it's not that big of a deal. So I'm just going to kind of cut off this corner. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select here, mark it as a seam, and unwrap. Okay, so I'm going to select and select, try to find those. So there's those edges. It is now unwrapped that in just to a straight ring. And we have the other section just in kind of a leg. Not super ideal, but it works for our sake. All right, Alt-H to unhide the lenses. And let's go to another section here. Not exactly sure what that is. Okay, so that's for the quick detach or lever, whatever you want to call it, that attaches just to the rail. Well, same thing. Where do we want to split this? Where we cannot see it. So we can see the section where it's nice and stretched out here. So what we want to do is we want to go to the far inside. I'm just going to mark a seam. Select these again so we can tell where we're at. All right, and it is now in one piece here. So it's been opened up, laid out flat. We have a flat piece there, and we have the flat piece there. It's been laid out nicely. Not sure what that goes to. That's a different part. But we are pretty much, we're actually at the point where we're very close. I know this one here, if I recall right, that's in a spot that you can't even see. Yeah, so that's not a concern at all. Go over to here. Let's see, what is this? Okay, so that's the same thing. It's just in the opposite side as the one we did before. So I'm going to hide lenses, like so. And how do we unwrap this? Well, same deal. Go to the top or left, and we're just going to run that seam all the same as we did here. Nothing fancy, nothing difficult, just all the same way. Let me move my, whatever you call it, back a good ways. Select them to link them. And that one's flat, so that runs there. Mark it as a seam, and unwrap. Okay, select these, and here's our new piece right here. Nice and flat. Well, this has been about 14 minutes of this, so you should really be able to get the concept down from here. Obviously, if you're doing work that should be shaded, such as, you know, this is kind of what you should be doing. Well, let me rephrase that. That initial start where I marked everything that had a sharp edge as a seam, that's kind of something that you should already be doing with your edges. So you should already have your edges marked as sharp and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's just really what I use as a kind of starter to jump, kind of, I guess, accelerate into the unwrapping process, because it, for the most part, it does a lot of parts that you're going to want right from the get-go. And on top of that, when you're baking, whenever you have let's say an edge marked as sharp. So let's say somehow this edge here was marked as sharp. Of course, it's going to do that. Keep selecting everything wrong. I had this edge here marked as sharp. Can I not control click you? Like that, and it goes all the way around. Well, let's say it was marked as sharp, but it was not marked as a seam. When you go to bake the high poly onto it, you're going to end up with some kind of weird baking artifacts. They're usually on the small side, but they're just noticeable, and they're kind of annoying because it follows pretty much all around that harsh edge. And if you mark them as a seam and they have their own island, you usually don't have that problem. It's not really an issue. So that's another reason for that. But anyways, I digress. I don't really know what I digress means. And then if you're lazy like me, let's say we're done. I recommend using UV Packer. I am not really good at this, but it allows me just to simply go, once I have everything unwrapped how I want, click pack and call it a day. It drastically increases the amount of space that I am not using. Or sorry, that I want to use. So I'm taking up a lot more of the island with, well, my unwrapped parts. And it does a pretty dang good job at not having anything overlap as well. So it's not perfect, obviously. You're going to want to go through, and there's parts that you will want to increase the size of if you can. For example, we're going to be viewing it from this angle here. I may want a little bit more detail around bolt heads. So I can take them, I can figure out wherever they're at, I can scale them on up, or better yet, probably wouldn't hurt just to move them out of the way. I'll just scale them by 4. And I can take these islands and kind of move them wherever I see fit. So that fits there. That fits in there. That might fit there. And that guy fits there. So let me fit that in there a little better. And now, texture-wise for the detail, as I'm going to be close to them, I'll have more details here. I'll be able to see them a lot clearly. It'll just look better. A little bit more sharp. And yeah, obviously you're going to want to do a lot of stuff manually. Even though computers are smart, they don't really think in the way that we do. So there's never going to be a perfect algorithm other than your brain, unless someone somehow really makes one. But if you're like me and you're lazy, I highly recommend getting the UV Packer plugin. It's free. It works well. I'm a programmer, not an artist. So yeah, you can see why I would want to use it. Anyways, that is going to be all for this video. If you like what I'm doing and you want to help support me, you can find a link to my Patreon down in the description below, where I have a team deathmatch series just for Patrons, as well as, oh yeah, you get early access to pretty much all of my videos. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to join my Discord. That is also linked down below, and I'll try to help you out. So I'll see you in the next video.